Welcome to Library Out Loud, a conversation about any and all things related to the Spokane County Library District. Library Out Loud is brought to you by the Spokane County Library District and our friends at STCU. Now, here's your host, Jane Baker.
Hello and welcome to Library Out Loud. I'm Jane Baker, the Communication and Development Director for the Spokane County Library District. And today we are talking about some great things happening at the Moran Prairie Library and the Moran Prairie Grange. And my guests today are Ree West, librarian at the County Library District. Thanks for being here, Ree.
My pleasure, Jane.
And also Marcy Kistner. Marcy is an intern on this project, and this project is what brought you on as an intern to do some exciting stuff with us. We're going to talk about that. So welcome both of you today. This is an exhibit and a whole partnership that you're doing with the Moran Prairie Grange. Awesome story. Tell me how this got started.
Yes. The exhibit is one part of a bigger project, and it all started with a grant from Washington Rural Heritage.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a great program which is funded by the Institute of Museum and Library Services and the Washington State Library that helps individual libraries around the state of Washington to capture history projects that may otherwise be languishing and not brought to the surface so that people can enjoy their state's history.
Oh, that's great. So preservation and a way of bringing it forward in a new format.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So what does the grant include then?
So in a nutshell, the grant pays for digitization of all kinds of resources related to Washington state history. And it also pays for things around the digitization project, such as equipment to allow you to photograph and then scan and upload photos to the Washington Rural Heritage Database. It also allows you to have an event to publicize the project, and it also allows you to have some helpers to do the digitizing and scanning for you, because librarians don't necessarily have time with all of their other duties to physically do the scanning.
Sure. And that's how we have Marcy as an intern.
That's right.
All right.
So I was really excited since in a previous iteration of the Washington Rural Heritage Grant, we had already purchased our equipment for photographing and scanning documents. And so this time around, we were able to have some funds to pay college interns to have some work experience that is very directly relevant to what they want to do as a career.
Wow.
And so Marcy is one of two interns who currently has a paid internship with us. And that's important to us in and of itself as a district, because one of the things we want to support is to help our young people more successfully enter the workforce so they can remain in the region and contribute to our economy.
That's great. Now, we previously did something similar like this with Medical Lake. And there might be one other, I think, did we do Rockford?
Yes.
Okay, I did remember that correctly.
You did.
Okay, so now we're moving on to the Moran Prairie Grange, which is very exciting. So let's talk more about that in just a moment. But first, Marcy, tell me what is it like? What do you do during the day when you come to work?
So it involves a lot of research. So the first thing you kind of have to do when looking at an item is researching, making sure you're going into the item and learning as much information about it as possible. Once that kind of comes about, then depending on what kind of item it is, whether it's a photograph or a book or maybe a physical object such as these banners, we either have to photograph or scan the items into our computer, and then we're able to fix up these photos a little bit so that we are able to post them onto the Washington Rural Heritage site. But yeah, you just start with a lot of research, and then after that, when you learn all your information about the items, and you can kind of move forward after that.
That's great. Very exciting.
Would you like us to give you an example?
Absolutely.
Okay, so for instance, we have this photograph, which you're not going to be able to see very well, but it's a photograph of a pickup truck that's all decked out as a parade float. And there's no information on the back, well, very little, Rockford Fair float, but we don't know what year. And so from talking to family members of people in the photograph, we've been able to narrow it down to somewhere between 1940 and 1943.
Wow.
But we're still trying to narrow that down further. One kind of neat thing is in the front of the bed of the pickup here is a sign that says P of H, and we have the sign here that we found in the basement of the Grange. So here it is. This is from the parade float. And we'll do further research, such as we have the old minute books, so we can look through them for that period of time to find out, more specifics about that event. So that's kind of what we're doing. So this photo got scanned, this got photographed. They're both getting uploaded to the database so that people can read about how people lived back in 1940.
Find out what it was all about. And this particular project's all about the Moran Prairie Grange. So now, not everybody knows what a Grange is, let alone that there was one in Moran Prairie. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So kind of, as we've been doing this project, we've been learning a lot, and I've been so impressed with what a dynamic organization the Granges were. And there are Granges in all of the states. They were begun back in the mid-1800s.
Wow.
And they are a fraternal organization similar to, say, the Masons, but they're a little bit different because they're a fraternal organization where the members were farmers or rural residents of an area.
Okay.
And they were set up to allow farmers to get together and share information, help support each other in the community, and then also entertain and educate the local community when there weren't other organizations for doing that.
Wow, so it was a way for the whole community to get together and share information and ideas, as well as be entertained and social.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
And one interesting notable thing about the patrons of husbandry was that right from the very beginning, they did not limit women from taking office. So women were eligible to be the master of the local Grange, which is kind of like the president. And this Grange even had its first female master in 1913, and then periodically throughout its history.
Wow. Wow, women couldn't even vote then.
I know.
So that was very forward thinking.
Yes.
Yeah. Besides that, what was the other most interesting thing that you've learned about
What do you think, Marcy?
I think it's just very interesting how every year they would get together all the Granges in the state, and not only did they, have a meeting to discuss what was going on in their Granges, but they also had various other activities such as baking contests, bowling contests.
Really?
Things that are just, fun to do with other people who are in the same group that you are. That's what I find interesting, is that they had so many social gatherings, as well as kind of some more serious meetings and such, but it kind of makes for an overall great little group there.
That's awesome. So, so the Grange still exists today.
It does, yeah.
And it's currently has members. And
Actually, Washington State has more Grange members today than any other state.
Really?
Yeah.
I wonder why that is. That's very cool.
It is.
Yeah. So the Grange, then you said we have some wonderful items here, and we're going to talk about these. But you had found these in the basement of the Grange, and they were just down there packed away?
So at one time, the Moran Prairie Grange had as many as 500 members.
Wow.
And over time, most service clubs have experienced a decrease in membership over the last few decades.
Sure.
And Granges are no exception. And so now, while there still are about 100 Grange members at Moran Prairie, there's only half a dozen to a dozen who are active right now. So, and most of these items that we have found were downstairs in the basement, not cataloged in any sense that a library or a museum collection would be cataloged.
Sure.
And certainly vulnerable if there were, say, a flood or disaster with the building. And then also not accessible for anybody to see or learn from. So that was one reason why we chose to partner with the Moran Prairie Grange, because this is actually a tremendous part of Washington's rural history, and it's kind of hidden away.
Very cool. So the Grange still exists, and it's up off of Regal. Is that correct?
It's on Palouse Highway.
Palouse Highway, which I was reading. I was doing a little homework for this interview yesterday, and I was reading that the Grange was instrumental in getting the Palouse Highway going.
Yes.
So we're going to have to talk about that a little bit here, and we're all going to also talk about some of these items because we have some really cool things. You had pointed out the book there with the minutes. I'm assuming if you open that up, is it all handwritten and everything?
It is, and it's kind of spidery font or text. So it's a little bit brain bending to read through here.
Wow.
But there's some very interesting things that you can learn as you do.
Yeah, great history. And then we have some banners. We're going to talk about those and some ribbons or medals. Those are very detailed, beautiful pieces of history there. We'll have to talk about that too in a minute. But we're going to take a quick break here on Library Out Loud, and then we'll be back to talk with Ree and Marcy here in more about this at the Moran Prairie Grange on Library Out Loud.
Is your child having trouble coping with a personal disability, but don't know where to go? Consider our friends at Breakthrough Incorporated. Breakthrough takes great pride in mentoring their DDA clients who have intellectual disabilities and their BRS clients who have challenging behaviors toward the creation of safe, appropriate, ethically sound life goals. They integrate programs at school and home to enrich their lives. They work hard to make a positive difference in you and your family's lives. Breakthrough provides a highly structured, fully staffed residential setting in local neighborhoods, 6 in Spokane and 2 in the Tri-Cities. Diagnoses affect people differently, so their service to each resident is unique, giving them the opportunity to grow and evolve. For more information on Breakthrough, visit their website at breakthroughincorporated.org.
Hi, this is Kurt Stockwell with Well Dressed Walrus. We are a local website design and development company here in Spokane. What we do is build beautiful, usable websites for local businesses. A website needs to be beautiful, it needs to be usable for your users, your customers, and yourself. Contact us anytime. We'd love to talk with you about your online marketing.
What? You haven't been to the library lately? Stop in today and see that the library is more than books. Spokane County Library District facilities feature on-site technology, including Wi-Fi, computers, and printers, as well as free use of meeting rooms. The Library District offers events and programs for all ages, from story times to career development and employer classes to Social Security workshops. Our staff is well trained and happy to help. Find out more about your library at scld.org.
Hello and welcome back to Library Out Loud. I'm Jane Baker with Spokane County Library District. Sometimes I get going too fast on that. Along with Marcy Kistner and Ree West, two of our employees who are working on this awesome project with the Moran Prairie Grange. I do want to mention that we have a lot of neat stuff here, and we're talking about some neat stuff. And earlier you had held up a photo, a little kind of hard to see on camera, but we have a great exhibit coming to the Moran Prairie Library with all of these things and more. And that will be the entire month of May 2nd through the 29th at the Moran Prairie Library. So if you're interested in this, make sure and get up there sometime during the month of May. And then there's another event coming up in July that's actually at the Grange, and that will be a dance, an old-fashioned dance.
Yeah, we're inviting everybody to come out for a good old-fashioned Grange Hall dance, and it's on Saturday, July 14th. More details to come, but there will be a dinner first off, and we'll be talking a little bit about the history during that dinner, and then we'll get together and we're going to have a dance, and we'll have a caller there to help people learn, you know, the steps of the dances.
Sure.
And then we're just going to dance away, and we'll have refreshments about halfway through. And the caller is wonderful, and he gives all kinds of history and little facts about the dances along the way. So for families to come out and learn about all the ways that families used to get together and enjoy themselves 100 years ago, it's going to be a unique experience.
Oh,
I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yes, it sounds exciting.
Yeah.
So the Grange was the social organization of the time for everybody. You know, they didn't have social media, of course, or I'm not even sure about how often they would get newspapers, and of course there was no television.
Yeah.
So the Grange was the social place for the community to go to. But there were also movement as far as legislative items, and as we'd mentioned, the Palouse Highway. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the Palouse Highway is a great example of the function of the Grange as a political organization, or a way for just everybody in the community to actually participate in the political process, the legislative process. So I wanted to learn a little bit more about the Grange's part in getting the Palouse Highway established, and so I was reading through the minutes books during the years that the Grange was working on getting that put through, and I saw that in the minutes as of, December 9th, 1933, the group made a resolution in regard to the Palouse Highway, and they sent their resolution off to the state representatives in Spokane and Whitman counties, and that was the start.
Okay.
And there was a whole bunch of going back and forth of trying to help the legislators be aware of why the Palouse Highway was important and why it needed to happen and where and how. And they finally got that put through, and gosh, I think it was, you're going to have to come to the exhibit to find out the exact date.
Sure.
But it was something like 1937, I think. They had a groundbreaking ceremony for the Palouse Highway out in front of the Grange, and that's why we've got that road today.
Wow, that's exciting that it started right there in front of the Grange, and that group of people, back in those days, and I think we're kind of seeing some of this come forth again today, with much more different issues. Well, maybe not so different, but here they gathered together and they said, okay, if we want to make this happen in our area, we have to do it. And they got involved, and I recall I was reading some of that information that there was some pushback on the Palouse Highway, and it was actually the Grange members who went out door to door and talked to people and answered questions, and were the communication channel
at that
time.
And they would mobilize people to actually go and telegraph their state representatives in Olympia. So
Telegraph.
that exactly.
Literally,
Yeah,
telegraph. Yes.
So that was how the communication was taking place. So there are local Granges in little communities, and then there's a state Grange overall, and so the function of the state, one of the functions of the State Grange, was to go and listen to legislative sessions and learn about what was going on, and then write to the masters of the individual Granges, let them know, here's what's coming, this is what they're discussing, how do we want to see that play out? And then they would have an individual Grange meeting, decide what they would like to see happen, and then either communicate with legislators individually by telegraphing them or writing letters, or then getting together as a group and writing a resolution and sending it in. And then also, like you saw with the Palouse Highway, like going out into the community and getting the rest of the community to participate. So before you had television or a radio or regular newspapers, this was one way that you found out what was going on in the political world.
Wow. Yeah. Very important and very instrumental in the progress of the communities here and how those happen. So this is very important work. Now you have some really cool things here. Let's talk about what we have on the table.
Sure.
Start wherever you'd like.
Yeah, so these are gorgeous. These are some badges of office, and we're still doing some research to kind of narrow down the date on these. We can't find any records about when they were purchased, but we do kind of have a clue because this braid here is metal. It's not synthetic fabric at all, so it predates.
They're heavy.
Plastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are badges of office. And so this one says master on it, and so during meetings and ceremonies you would wear your badge of office. Another thing that would be done is if a member of the group passed away, they would do a ceremony called draping the charter, and this was a way to mourn the passing of a colleague, but honor that person's memory, and so they would drape the certificate, the charter that gives the Grange its reason for being, and they would also turn over the badges of office, and you can see that they're black.
Yeah.
And so that was part of the ceremony of draping the charter to honor a member who'd passed away.
Wow, very symbolic and respectful at the same time. Very nice. And yes, I picked one of those up earlier. They're heavy. They're high quality, beautiful items, and you can see that and many more things. And then we have some of these banners. Talk about these banners.
Yes, I think these are really fun because they speak to the kinds of things that were interesting and important to people at different periods of time. And these banners come from the Moran Prairie Grange's participation in the annual State Grange conference. And there would be different competitions. And so these banners represent years that the Moran Prairie Grange won the state competition in different areas, such as square dancing or the talent contest or parliamentary procedure, how you conducted your meetings, and then a quartet singing contest.
Oh, neat.
And then also the lecture. And the lecture is, it's an office lecturer. Each meeting would have a lecture that the lecturer and the committee put together. And generally they were entertainment, or they were also educational. So different farming techniques, learning about a federal act that was being put through if the people wanted to learn more about what was going on in Congress. All different kinds of things. Sing-alongs, card games, dances.
Wow.
So this, in 1969, the lecturer for the Moran Prairie Grange won the prize for being the best at doing that.
Oh, that's pretty neat. So each meeting they had kind of a different theme.
Yeah, well, each meeting had a structure. And can you talk a little bit more about the structure of a meeting, typical?
So after going through a few record books and stuff that kind of laid out the structure of it, they did have, a good amount of time where they had, their meeting. They were talking about issues that they needed to bring up within their group. But then they would have little breaks within the day where they would say, maybe go and judge the cooking contest or the dancing contest or something like that. So they would take little breaks within the day. They also ended their days a little earlier, around mid-afternoon, and then that's when they would have, a good deal of contests and such, and a little bit more downtime, so it kind of offset the seriousness of the actual meetings.
Sure. Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear more about this at the exhibit, which will be at the Moran Prairie Library through May. And we have this great photo here.
Yes.
And I don't want to forget to mention this because we have this front and
something
center.
that Granges did is they had drill teams, and they would have multiple levels of drill teams. Even the kids for the junior, they would have a junior Grange and run it just like the adults. And this was great because they could learn leadership skills.
Sure.
But this is a photograph of the, I think it's a 3rd and 4th degree drill team in 1940. I'm not sure if you can see the date over there, but yeah, it's just a picture of the people who were on August.
Yeah.
So getting together and practicing would be one of the things that they would do.
Great. This is great information and a piece of history that's right here in the area that we can go and feel and touch and look and learn and find out more about. What a great project. Good job putting this together. Thank you so much for the work you're doing on this. Again, the Moran Prairie Library has the exhibit about the Moran Prairie Grange, a Washington Rural Heritage exhibit coming up May 2nd through May 9th. And then the Contra Dance will be at the Moran Prairie Grange in July. And you can find out more about this project and any links to the Washington State Heritage site. All of that's on our website at scld.org. So come check it out. Find out more. Again, thank you for the work and thank you for being here today. And we'll look forward to hearing more about this and seeing you at the Contra Dance.
Thanks for having us, Jamie.
All right. Until next time, we'll see you then on Library Out Loud.
Library Out Loud is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Ask a question, recommend a guest, and hear this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com. Library Out Loud is brought to you by the Spokane County Library District and STCU. Go visit and explore your local library today.